Hey there, music fans. This is Peter Skov from Music is a Journey. Today, an album review. Actually, a band review, even. This is the new album by Spell called Tragic Magic, released just here October 28th, I think it was, 2022. Alright, I want to talk about this album. I've given it a few listens now, but I also want to talk a little bit about Spell. Okay, you've heard me mention them before, because back in 2020, I picked up this album here, their third album, Opulent Decay, and I was so impressed with it that I started my quest for Canadian metal journey of 2020 and found tons and tons of bands. And later on, when I made a video about albums that really impressed me, albums that, not just like, wow, what a great album, but like, wow, I can't believe I haven't heard anything like this before. This was one of the ones that I mentioned. Okay, so before we get into the new album, Tragic Magic, let's just take a little bit of a background stroll through Spell's catalog. First of all, Spell are from Vancouver, British Columbia. They, Canada, obviously. They have released 4 full-length albums now, as well as they did a split. Their debut, The Full Moon Sessions, was back from, I think it's 2014. 10 tracks on here, featuring Cam Mesmer bass vocals, Lester Skelter drums, and Graham McGee on guitars. So here, when Spell first started out, they were a traditional kind of like 80s metal band style. There was a lot of that going on, I think, in the previous decade and maybe slightly before then. When I started my Canadian quest there a couple of years back, I found quite a few bands actually bringing back that 80s metal sound. And it's on here as well. In fact, there are at least 3 songs on here dedicated to the love of heavy metal and distorted rock and roll. And some of the vocals on here too, they have that. And I think there's one song on here about we are possessed by heavy metal. Yeah, exactly, possessed by heavy metal. The vocals almost are like that Raven or Udo Dirkschneider type of, back of the throat, rough scream type sound. Anyway, really cool. But anyway, that's where they started out, which was very different from the third album. Now, the second album, For None and All, I believe it is, I don't have it. It's on order though. It is on order now. I ordered it. I'll probably get it in a couple of weeks anyway. So I can't really say what they were doing there on that one. It's Cam Mayhem, Al Lester, and Graham McGee. I think it's the same 3 people. That just a couple of them changed their names around. By the time we hit Opulent Decay, however, we've got Cam Mayhem has gone back to being Cam Mesmer. Lester Skelter, who became Al Lester, has become Lester Spruce. And Graham McGee has suddenly become Graham McVie. Anyway, but also we see a little bit more here. We see, for example, Cam Mesmer, Al Lester is now doing backing vocals as well. And Graham McGee, who started playing synth on the second album, is adding synth here. These synthesizers are not the bright poppy synthesizers that you might expect from some 80s bands, though. This is more of this kind of like background, atmospheric, growly type synthesizer. Basically, what is so impressive about this album here is it's as if you have a late 70s, like space rock, mystical, lyric themed prog band jumping into the mid-80s and discovering mid-80s heavy metal as well as like Depeche Mode or something, and coming up with this one here. It is not a really heavy album for the most part, but the music on here is just so impressive, I thought. I really love it. So that was Opulent Decay. That was the third album, and the fourth album, Tragic Magic, as I said, just came out recently. What has happened? All right. We're finding that a lot of bands have released albums now at kind of like 2 years after COVID-19 was ravaging the world. And because of the lockdowns, a lot of people were at home and writing music, and now finally getting together into the studio again and getting to record stuff. I know some people, of course, recorded at home and traded files and so on. But anyway, this was actually recorded at Ooh, what's it called now? Well, anyway, at a studio in New Westminster. I forget the name of it. New Westminster, a city in near Vancouver. Anyway, so they stripped down to a two-piece band. It is, I think the McVie fellow is no longer here. It is just the Lester and the Mesmer fellows. Here they are on the back. Long hair and mustaches. All right. So what has happened? Well, okay. This album here, I feel, brings back a little bit more of the traditional heavy metal sound, which was quite a bit reduced to almost absent on Opulent Decay. This has a little bit more from the first album, which is why I really decided I had to order the second album, because I want to know the sonic story of the band. But anyway, some of the tracks, the opening track, first of all, Fatal Breath, starts off quite heavy. A couple of other ones on here too are quite heavy anyway, compared to the previous album. But there is also some of that Opulent Decay sound in here, but it has evolved somewhat. I feel like what was pushed so much forward with this kind of like 80s psychedelic Depeche Mode type, what was it now? 80s psychedelic prog rock stuff that was on Opulent Decay has been scaled back a little bit, and the heavier stuff has been put forward a little bit, so that this is a kind of a, not a balance between Opulent Decay and the Full Moon Sessions, but maybe a balance between Opulent Decay and the second album, I'm not sure. So we're still getting a lot of these like more kind of, clean and atmospheric type guitars, some of these kind of background, low, growling, atmospheric keyboards, still getting the kind of mystical lyrics and so on, but there has been a bit of a change. I think they said that this album, in an interview I read, if I remember correctly, they said this album has a little bit more of an aggressive feel to it because of the way the world was there for those 2 years where, with the lockdowns, people, some people's nerves getting frayed, some people, can't be at home, all this kind of thing. So I think there was a little bit more of a different approach, obviously, than on Opulent Decay. My first impression, actually listening to it, was that this album was a lot heavier. However, going back to it 2-3 times now, and as well, I put it on shuffle along with the other 2 albums. So just I could hear whenever a song came up, I would think, okay, this has got to be from Full Moon Sessions. This has to be from Opulent Decay. This must be from Tragic Magic. And I actually found that a lot of the tracks did have more of a resemblance to Opulent Decay. A lot of them, oh gosh, let's see, Hades Embrace, Fever Dream, Sarcophagus, well, pretty much most of the album, A Ruined Garden, Souls in Change, Watcher of the Seas, Watcher of the Seas. All of these had some of these elements that I really enjoyed on the last album, but as well were different enough that it is not an Opulent Decay Part 2. You probably could take five or six favorites from here and 5 or 6 favorites from there and put them together, and they wouldn't exactly sound like a cohesive album, but they'd be pretty close. Yeah, anyway, so just I do really enjoy this album. I think still I like Opulent Decay that much more, just because it had such a tremendous impact on me. So almost anything I hear from Spell now is going to be compared to that. But it is an album that is growing on. I mean, I liked it from the start, but it's growing on me more and more as I listen to it and pick up more and more of those parts in the songs that I like. Like now when I listen to Opulent Decay, it's just like song after song. It's like, oh yeah, that's this one and that's that one. So it takes a little bit of time to become familiar with it. But anyway, they have done a great job. I was a little sad to see that it was down to a duo now. I should mention, let's see here, Cam Mesmer is doing bass vocals as before, but he's also doing rhythm guitar. I think that's him here. And Al Lester, who was doing drums and vocals, backing vocals before, is now also doing lead guitar. Oh, I should mention Ultraviolet, the second track on here. There's a video for it, an official video. You can see them on that. And I think that's about it to say about this. There is another video review of this album out there with someone who is much more articulate and better at describing music than I am. You can also find a couple of reviews online with some very articulate descriptions of what this album is like, or you can just go ahead and go to like YouTube or something and check it out for yourself. But there we go. Spell, Tragic Magic. A couple of other things. Oh, now it's in my bag. I didn't take it out. Cauldron, not a new album, but their EP from way back in, well, like 2007 or something, was reissued last year. I didn't know. I just went to Amazon and saw, oh look, a new album by Cauldron, gotta get it. And then I got it and found, oh, this was like the original EP from way back when. So still nothing new since New Gods from 4 years ago. And Blood Ceremony, who have 4 albums out now, are putting out their 5th one. I think it's November 13th is due out. So very excited to hear how Blood Ceremony come out on that one there. Skullfist have a new album. La Chinga is mixing a new album. So a lot of these bands that I was talking about a couple of years ago, new stuff is coming out. Great, good news. Okay, thanks for watching that one, and I'm going to be coming back with a video soon, another kind of band biography feature, so stick around for that. Everyone, see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.